So good afternoon, everyone. I am here with Kenning Arlitsch, and he's going to spend an hour or a little less or something like that with us to introduce us to what we can do to make our common documents more accessible to our patrons. So Kenning, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. A couple of disclaimers before we start. First, this is the first time I'm giving this presentation, so I will welcome your feedback for improving it. Second, what I'm going to show you, I work on a Macintosh computer, so some of the things that I show you may not look exactly the same in a Windows application, but the principles will be the same, and I think you'll be able to apply them. So this is a presentation about, this is not a deep dive into accessibility issues or into disability issues, but this is really intended to provide some quite easy solutions for getting your documents most of the way there toward accessibility for disabled users. And one of the things that I hope you will take away from this presentation is that there are other advantages to creating accessible documents. First and foremost, of course, making common documents that we create every day, like Word and PDF files, more accessible to disabled users is the primary purpose here. But at the same time that you're doing that, you will also be making documents more comprehensible to search engines. They will be able to understand them better. And third, you will be able to quickly and easily improve the visual design of your documents. Design matters. I mean, we have an entire marketing and advertising industry on Madison Avenue devoted to making things appealing to people, and those principles can be applied to your documents as well. And once you structure your documents appropriately, it's really easy to change how they look and to make them look much more professional. So a little bit of background on disability rights. In 1973, the Rehabilitation Act was passed, and it was amended in 1998. And Section 504 of that act basically states that that discrimination on the basis of disability for programs that receive federal financial assistance is prohibited. And then in 1990, of course, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law by President George Herbert Walker Bush, and that was amended in 2008. And that says specifically that no qualified individual with a disability shall be excluded from participation or denied the benefits of services, programs, or activities of a public entity. And so between these two acts, we're pretty well covered as public institutions. Furthermore, within the U.S. Department of Education is the Office of Civil Rights. And in recent years, the Office of Civil Rights was getting much more serious about enforcing the Americans with Disabilities Act as it pertained to educational institutions and public institutions, and specifically with regard to information technologies. So in 2010, they issued what was basically a policy. It's known as a Dear Colleague letter. And in that letter, it stated that it is unacceptable for universities to use emerging technology without insisting that this technology be accessible to all students. But it's broader than just universities, as we shall see in a moment. The policy also extends to beyond websites and to all kinds of technologies, including ebook readers, databases, journals, learning management systems, and so forth. So if you go to the Office of Civil Rights website, you can see that in recent years they have been receiving and addressing many more complaints about websites and other technologies that are provided by public institutions and that are not accessible to disabled users. So that URL, in fact, will get you to what they call their reading room. And once in there, you can search or browse. So you could search by the state of Montana, for instance, and you can see a whole list of issues with different institutions across the state, whether it's K through 12 or the Office of Public Instruction or the Montana University System, or very specifically University of Montana, Montana State University. There are both complaint documents and resolution agreements in that list. Interestingly, I was not able to find the Montana State Library in that list, so I'm not sure, but I thought you had received such a letter. In any case,
I believe we did actually about a year ago receive a Dear Colleague letter about primarily recordings like the one we're doing today that were not captioned, and maybe there were some other things Tracy might be able to add to that, but I know at the time we had already formed a committee to look at making our recordings more accessible, and I think that helped us out, that we were already, had plans underway to improve our accessibility for our recordings. I don't know what else that was in the letter.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you had received something too, but for some reason I'm unable to find it on the Office of Civil Rights website. Anyway, if an institution does receive a letter, a complaint from the Office of Civil Rights, they're typically given a period of time in which to negotiate how they will address the problems that were uncovered. And once that negotiation is accepted, the Office of Civil Rights issues a resolution letter that looks similar to this. So you can see on this one, we received a complaint on February 16, 2017, and by November, we had come to an agreement with the Office of Civil Rights on how we were going to address the accessibility problems with our websites and our technologies, and also a period of time, I think that's probably listed on subsequent pages and I'm not showing here, period of time by which we were expected to resolve those issues. So we are in that period at the moment. We have begun to address our issues with our websites and other technologies, our learning management system, our databases and journals and so forth. The University of Montana was actually, I think, the first to go through this in the state. I believe they went through this in 2012 or 2013, where they had to make sure that everything was accessible. So the question is, what makes a document accessible? And remember, today we're just talking about common documents. We're not getting into captioning or web, really web documents, HTML documents, or anything like that. But basically for documents, it's all about the structure that the document has. If you just type and you never create any structure, then it gives no priority to sections of a document, and it doesn't delineate different sections of a document. And what structure does is it provides invisible tags to help machines distinguish document parts and hierarchy. So there are a few examples listed there, such as title, subtitle, different levels of headers. There are different higher level headers such as H1s or lower nested type headers, dates, quotes, lists, emphases. There's a whole slew of potential structure that you can create for your document. And once that's created, once that structure is created, it allows assistive technologies to read or play text to disabled users, visually disabled and hearing impaired users. But the added benefit, as I mentioned earlier, is that search engines can then parse the document. So major search engines like Google and Google Scholar and Yahoo and Bing can better understand the documents that they're indexing, and therefore more appropriately direct users to those documents. So just a few examples of some assistive technologies. I'm sure you're very familiar with these. A list for both visually impaired and hearing impaired users. So jump right into what are some simple solutions for Microsoft Word and for PDF files. Because both of these software packages, Microsoft Word and Adobe Acrobat, have built-in tools that make creating accessible documents really quite easy. In Word, there are predefined styles that provide document structure, and Word also has an accessibility checker. Similarly, Adobe Acrobat has an accessibility checker, and it can also immediately address and fix most problems that it uncovers. So typically when somebody creates a document in Microsoft Word, they will type text. So I just type the text creating headers, and then to give their document some kind of structure, they typically will highlight the text. They'll choose bold or italicize or underline, or they will make the font bigger or some combination thereof, or they'll change the font. And this gives some visual structure to the document, but it's really still an unstructured document, as you're seeing in front of you here. The memorandum of understanding at the top is simply text that was capitalized and bolded and made a slightly bigger font. The headers, like purpose and funding and duties and expectations, are not really headers. They're just, again, they're just bolded. The letters on the side are not formal lists. And then further down where you see year one, that's not a lower level header. It's just it's just the same. Visually, it's just the same level. And then an unnumbered, formally unnumbered list down below. So the better method to creating document structure in Word would be to, again, highlight the text that you have created and then choose the styles that are built in. So you can see what I did here was just click on the down arrow, and that reveals some of the most commonly used styles. And if you just click on one of these, like heading 1 is highlighted, if I click on that, it creates an actual structured header. Now if you click on that styles pane button over to the right, you'll get a much more detailed list of styles that are available to you. And down below where it says list all styles, typically when you first get into this, I think there are 3 different choices. Typically when you first get into this, it will say something like styles in use. And those are the styles that Word is seeing in the document, and it will list those. And then there's also recommended styles, and then you can choose all styles as well, which gives you the complete list. And this is quite a lengthy list. Obviously I can't scroll to show you, but it is a long list of potential styles. So compare before and after the original document on the left with the structured document on the right. The document on the right really doesn't look a whole lot different, just visually, but it has built-in structure now. And what that built-in structure allows you to do is to easily apply some visual design with predefined templates. So for instance, you can click on the, just below the home button is a little drop-down list, and that will show you a series of design themes, okay? And you can choose one of those themes, and then to the right, it will show you a series of template ideas that you can apply with the click of a button. And because Word already understands now where the headers are and where the titles are and subtitles and all that, it can easily apply these different templates. And to the right, you see colors, so you can change color schemes. There are some other choices over to the right that I didn't include in this screen capture. But basically what selecting those items does is allow you to change that, that memorandum of understanding document to something like this, or something like this, or something like this. It gives it a much nicer, more professional look. Furthermore, if those predefined styles aren't, you don't find them useful, you can create your own. In Word, under the Format pull-down menu is a style choice, and that brings up a dialog box where you can choose the element. So here I've chosen heading 1, sorry, and it shows me to the right that all of the styles that are currently assigned to that heading. So it's an 11-point font, it's bold, it has a certain color, and so forth. It has space of a certain amount before the header and after the header. All these things can be changed. So if you click on that modify link down below where it says body, you get this other dialog box. And now you have the ability to change all kinds of things about the header style. So there's quite a lot that you can do here. And when you start to get into writing longer documents, writing reports that require tables of contents and bibliographies and chapters and sections and so forth, this becomes really useful and makes it really easy to globally change the way the document looks and the way it reads, while also maintaining that that structure that will help disabled users. Okay, so once you've created the document in Word and you're ready to do something with it, you're ready to send it to somebody or post it on the web or convert it to a PDF, you can run Word's internal accessibility checker, which is under the Tools menu. And that will tell you if the document has some problems. So then we move over to PDF, because many of us create documents in Word and then we save them or export them as PDF before we either send them to somebody or host them on a website. So let's take that same document, and if you open it in Acrobat, you'll see that there is an accessibility feature over on the right side. If you click that, it will bring up Acrobat's accessibility checker. And basically you can I've just left the default options here, which is checking almost all the categories, 31 out of 32. I've selected full check over on the right, and then Acrobat will tell me, whoops, that's the wrong order, sorry about that. Look at that middle document. Acrobat will tell me that I have several failures on my document. Tag PDF failed, primary language failed, title failed, so forth. Okay. Now, if I highlight those failures and then click that little drop-down box on the left image, you can see there's an option to fix. And if I choose that for each of the failures and then run the checker again, you can see that it has fixed almost everything. There are still a couple of questions that I didn't dig into to figure out what they mean, like logical reading order and the color contrast. But it's a pretty easy way to make sure everything's fixed and the document is accessible. Okay. So
I just want to jump in here. I just asked in the chat box how many people always use an existing template or the style pane in Word, for example, and we certainly have, there are a lot of us who could do better. It looks like there's nobody perfect in this group, Kenning, so we're really glad you're here.
Well, that's great, and that's that's not surprising. I see it all the time in our organization here. I see documents. I have to tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
I saw a document recently from our legal counsel that was a policy about accessibility, and the document was nowhere near accessible. So
That would
even
fall into the category of irony, I think. But
yes, yes.
that's interesting. And I think what Rebecca says, she uses headings, but she doesn't do it perfectly. And I think, recognizing how important it is for a screen reader, and I look at just a document I was working on this morning and realized I hadn't, and I had not. It's really quite easy to go in and transform that document. It'll take me maybe 10 minutes to make it accessible, and that makes
And I would say
it easier for people to read it. And it's not just the legal issue, although that one might be the one that we're most motivated by sometimes.
Right, it's not just a legal issue, it's an ethical issue too, right?
It's the right thing to do. Yep.
It's the right thing to do, that's right. And the other thing I would say is you don't have to think about this as a retrofit, right? You don't have to create your document and then go back and try to make it accessible. You can choose those styles right as you're writing. You don't have to highlight text. You can just choose a style and then start typing, and it will put it into the correct style. Okay, so this has gone pretty fast. I just have one last recommendation, and this is about file names and dates, and this is also an accessibility issue. So take a look at that file name up at the top, Faculty Services Guide Outline. How often have you seen that %20 in between words that you've found on web servers? I'll bet quite a lot. And the reason that happens is when you leave spaces in file names, web servers fill in those spaces with that %20 filler. It's really easy to avoid. It creates an additional problem for screen readers, right? Because the screen reader will read that as faculty %20 services, %20 guide. And it's really easy to fix by just using hyphens in the file name instead. So as you can see, Faculty Services Guide Outline with hyphens. Then the other thing is about dates. 10/12/19, most of us would read that as October 12, 2019, unless you're from a European country where you would probably read that as December 10, 2019. Again, to avoid confusion and to just follow standards, it's better to use the 4-digit year hyphen 2-digit month, 2-digit day. And that is actually an International Standards Organization standard that should eliminate any kind of confusion and follow conventions that machines understand. So
yeah, and Chuck is saying in the chat box, I'll just jump in here, that date, the correct date, will sort properly. So, if you want to have your dates appear in order chronologically, that's how they should be written. Right. I have to admit, I did not know this. I think I knew some of the other stuff. I know I don't do it perfectly all the time, but that is totally new for me. That's good to know.
Yeah. So the last few years, I've just sort of established a convention for myself where I put in a slightly descriptive file name and then with hyphens, and then use an underscore to separate the date, put in the international standard date, and then the file extension. And the other thing that I didn't mention here is don't use periods in your file names. Traditionally, a period was used to distinguish the 3- or 4-digit file extension from the rest of the file name. And there are still cases where if you put a file name, a period in somewhere else in the file name, it can cause confusion with and sorting issues with certain machines. So that went pretty fast, and that's all I have for you today. So I would welcome your feedback and your questions.
And yeah, let's get some questions. My first one was, when in working with, say, tables in a Word document, is it better to create that table in Excel and then cut and paste it into the Word document, or is it better to use the tables formatting in Word? I always wondered how they would be interpreted by a screen reader.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I know that the accessibility checkers do look at tables as well. In any case, if you create your table and your data in Excel, you should not have to cut and paste it into Word or copy and paste it into Word. There are, again, there are ways of linking the Word document to the Excel spreadsheet and pulling those data in automatically. And the added advantage there is if you update the spreadsheet, it will automatically update your document. The same thing with PowerPoint slides. You can have that linkage as well, where the slide will automatically update if you update the spreadsheet. So it shouldn't be a separate creation.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? We'd like you to take a look at one of your Word documents and kind of practice improving it and running the what was it, the document checker?
Yeah, the accessibility checker
under tools.
Right.
And you can always come back and review this video. And Kenning, if you could send me your slides, I'll make sure everybody has the links that you had in the slides as well.
Sure, I'll do that.
That would be perfect. And
yeah,
then
I hope that I've been able to communicate that this is not a difficult problem, right? This is just there are very simple solutions to improving the accessibility of documents, if not making them perfect.
So Pam has a question about starting a new doc. I'm really disappointed with you guys. You all know how to use your microphones. Get in there. I told Kenny, I said, oh, this will be a chatty group. And you've proven me terribly wrong. It must be Monday.
So I can turn my microphone on if it really makes me happy, Joe. I just thought it was a big group and I didn't want to take over the chat or anything.
It totally makes me happy.
Okay, I just want to be clear about starting a new document because I don't know if I'm a little confused or exactly what, or I might have missed something. If I want to start a new document, what's the best way to do it?
So you can either, when you start a new document, you can either start from a blank template, which I think is what most of us tend to use, or you can use a predefined template, or you can use a template that you or someone else has created. If you want to create, for instance, if you're using letterhead, right? If you save that as a template file in Word, the first time you create it, then the next time you say new document, you'll be given the choice of generating a document from that template. In any case, in terms of styles, it really doesn't matter. So you can create a template that already has a bunch of styles built in, right? If you know that you're using the same kind of reporting template over and over, you can create that template and make sure that the sections already have appropriate styles. But if you just want to start from a blank document, that's fine too. You can just choose the styles as you go along. And they should be up in the ribbon bar. Let me
yeah. In the
right, yeah, mine are there too. And it's true, when I started a new document, it said there are no templates available or something. I haven't set any templates. I would have to search for them. So that explains that. Okay, I got it.
There are also a whole lot of templates available on Microsoft's website that you can download and use.
I think that the real important message here is to not, if you're in the habit of selecting text and making it bold or changing the size of the text or the style of the text over in the left-hand side of the ribbon at the top, quit doing that. And you can, if you want to highlight your text, you can highlight your text, but then go to the style pane and choose something from the style pane. And if there's something in the style pane that you don't like, you can change it in the style pane. But that will still make Word will know that that is a heading 1 or heading 2 or a subheading. And then your screen reader will also recognize that as a heading or a subheading. And that's the important part, to just get away from that, what is really in a bad habit that we all do, of just highlighting it and bolding the text or making the font bigger on the left-hand side of your ribbon. Go to the right-hand side of your ribbon.
And notice also on the two images that I have up at the moment, if you look at the menu choices, you know, home, insert, draw, it's design that's selected, and that's what's revealing those templates.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording now, and we can all stick around if anybody wants to like practice through this a little bit or bring up their computer. It might look a little different than what it looks like on Kenning's, being that he's more highly evolved and has a Mac. That's my editorial comment for the day. And thank you, Kenning, for bringing this all to our attention and sharing what you know. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.